My wife told me she was working late on the night of our 5th wedding anniversary. She said it the way she had been saying it for the past 4 months. Quickly, without apology, without looking up from her phone. She said it at 7:14 a.m. on a Tuesday morning in late October, while I was pouring her coffee and trying not to notice that she had stopped wearing the wedding ring I had given her on the inside of her hand at night. She said, "Caine, I have a client dinner tonight. I'll probably be home around 11. We can do anniversary drinks tomorrow." I said, "It's tonight, Saskia. The 5th anniversary is tonight." She said, "I know. I'm sorry. Volkov scheduled the dinner 3 days ago. It's a major account. I cannot move it." She kissed me on the cheek the way you kiss a cousin you have not seen in 8 years. She picked up her bag. She walked out of our apartment in the West Village without looking back. I stood in the kitchen with 2 cups of coffee on the counter and an envelope on the table containing the reservation I had made 6 months ago at a restaurant on Madison Avenue, where she had told me, on our second date, that she had always wanted to celebrate something important. I sat down at the kitchen table. I drank both cups of coffee. I thought about my mother. My mother, Belle Mercer, had died 18 months ago. Pancreatic cancer. She had been 68 years old. She had been a widow for 15 years. My father, Robert, had died of an aneurysm in 2009 when I was 22. My mother had raised me alone for the second half of my childhood and the first half of my adulthood. She had not remarried. She had not dated. She had told me, the year I turned 30, that there had been only one man for her, and that he had been my father, and that the proof of that was a 4.7-carat blue diamond he had given her in 1981 that she had worn every day of their marriage. When my mother was dying, she had given me the diamond. She had given it to me in her hospital room at Memorial Sloan Kettering, 8 days before she died. She had taken the small velvet box out of the drawer in her bedside table and placed it in my hand. She had said, "Caine, this was the proof your father gave me that he would never leave. Keep it. When you find someone who will never leave you, give it to her." I had taken the diamond home. I had thought for 2 months about who to give it to. Saskia and I had been married for 3 years and 6 months when my mother died. Saskia had cried at my mother's funeral. Saskia had sat with me through the empty months that followed. Saskia had said, on the night of my mother's birthday in March, that my mother had been the only mother-in-law she had ever wanted. I had believed her. In June of last year, I had taken the diamond to a jeweler on 5th Avenue and had it reset from a ring into a necklace. I had given the necklace to Saskia on her birthday in August. She had cried when she had opened the box. She had said, "Caine, this is too much. I cannot wear something this important." I had said, "Saskia, my mother told me to give it to someone who would never leave me. I am giving it to you." She had worn it that night. She had worn it 3 more times in the following 14 months. She had told me, each time, that she could not wear it often because it was too valuable, and that she kept it in the safe in our bedroom, and that she would wear it again on a special occasion. She had not worn it on our 5th anniversary, or so she told me at 7:14 that morning. I am Caine Mercer. I am 38 years old. I work as a financial portfolio analyst at a small firm in Midtown Manhattan. I make a comfortable but unremarkable living. I drive a 2017 Volvo XC60. I rent a 1-bedroom apartment with my wife in the West Village. I lost my father at 22. I lost my mother at 36. I have, for the 18 months since my mother died, been a man with no parents and 1 wife, and my wife had been, until this morning, the woman I had thought would carry me through the rest of my life. I was not sure, at 7:14 a.m. on a Tuesday morning in late October, that she was that woman anymore. I was not sure of many things on that morning. I was about to be sure of more things, by midnight, than I had ever wanted to be sure of in my life. I went to work. I sat at my desk in Midtown for 9 hours and pretended to read quarterly reports. I drafted 3 emails I did not send. I called my sister Camilla, who lives in Phoenix, and I left her a voicemail that said only, "Camilla, it's Caine. Call me back when you can." I called my own attorney, a woman named Pearl Templeton, who had handled my mother's estate, who I trusted more than I trusted most people, and I asked her if she had a moment to talk. Pearl said, "Caine, what is going on?" I said, "Pearl, I think my wife is having an affair with her boss. I think I have known it for 4 months. I think tonight is our 5th anniversary, and she has just told me she is working late, and I do not believe her. I do not know what to do. Pearl said, Caine, you drive to wherever the dinner is. You see what you see. You take photographs if you can. You do not say anything to her tonight. You come to my office tomorrow morning at 9. I said, Pearl, what if she is just having dinner with a client? Pearl said, then you will have driven to a restaurant for nothing. That is the cheapest mistake you can make tonight, Caine. Drive. I drove. At 6:32 p.m., I left my office on Park Avenue and walked 7 blocks to the building where Saskia worked, Volkov Wealth Strategies, on West 52nd Street. Volkov Wealth Strategies is a private wealth management firm that handles money for high-net-worth international clients. Saskia had worked there for 3 years. She was a senior analyst. She earned more than I did. She had been promoted twice in those 3 years, both times by Dmitry Volkov, the firm's founder and senior partner. Dmitry Volkov is 56 years old. He came to the United States from St. Petersburg in 1994. He owns an apartment on Central Park West that the New York Times had once described as one of the more aggressive expressions of new money in Manhattan. He had attended my mother's funeral in his capacity as Saskia's employer. He had given me his condolences in a low Russian-accented voice and had clasped my hand for slightly longer than I had wanted him to. He had said, that day, Mr. Mercer, your mother raised a strong man. I am sorry for your loss. I had thanked him. I had not thought about him for the 18 months since. I should have. I parked in the garage at 250 West 52nd Street and walked up to the lobby. Saskia's office is on the 22nd floor. The receptionist on 22, a young woman named Hadley, who I had met 3 or 4 times at company holiday parties, recognized me when I walked off the elevator. She said, Mr. Mercer, hi. Are you here to see Saskia? I said, I am, Hadley. Is she here? Hadley said, oh, she left about 30 minutes ago. She was meeting Mr. Volkov for the client dinner. I said, where was the dinner? Hadley said, the Athenaeum on East 56th. Mr. Volkov has a regular private room there. Did Saskia not tell you? I said, she did. I just forgot the address. I am bringing her flowers. It is our anniversary. Hadley said, oh, Mr. Mercer, that is so sweet. Happy anniversary. I said, thank you, Hadley. I walked out of the building. I drove 4 blocks east to the Athenaeum. The Athenaeum is one of those Manhattan restaurants that does not have a sign on the door. You either know about it or you do not. It is in the basement of an Edwardian limestone building, and the entrance is a single black door with a small brass plate that says nothing except Club in a typeface that has not been used in print since 1932. I had walked past it dozens of times over the years and never known what it was. I parked at a meter on East 56th and walked to the door at 8:14 p.m. A man in a dark suit opened the door before I knocked. He was the host, or the maitre d', or whatever the Athenaeum called the man whose job was to keep people like me out of restaurants like that one. He said, Sir, are you a member? I said, No, I am meeting my wife. She is here with the Volkov party in the private dining room. The host said, I am sorry, sir. The Volkov reservation specified a private dinner. I am not able to admit guests who were not on the original list. Can I take a message? I said, How much? The host said, Excuse me? I said, How much for you to walk away from this door for 2 minutes? The host looked at me for a long moment. I took out my wallet. I took out $200 bills. I held them between my first and second fingers. The host said, The private dining room is at the end of the hallway on the right. The kitchen entrance is on your left. I would recommend the kitchen entrance. The chef is on a smoke break. He will not be back for 4 minutes. I gave him the money. He stepped aside. I walked into the Athenaeum at 8:18 p.m. I walked through the kitchen. The chef was outside, as the host had said. The line cooks were preparing a course of duck and looked up at me without speaking. I walked through the kitchen and out into a back hallway that ran behind the dining rooms. I walked to the end of the hallway. There was a door on the right. The door had a small brass number on it. The number was 4. I stood outside the door of a private dining room 4 for 15 seconds. Then I opened the door 3 inches. I looked in. There were 5 people at the table. The first was Dmitry Volkov at the head of the table. He was wearing a black suit and a silver tie. He was holding a champagne flute. He was laughing at something somebody had just said. The second was Saskia. She was sitting on Volkov's right. She was wearing a black evening dress I had never seen before. She had her hand on Volkov's left wrist in a way she had stopped touching me 8 months ago. She was laughing, too. She was wearing my mother's diamond necklace. The third person at the table was a man in his 50s, also in a black suit, with thinning brown hair and a heavy gold ring on his right hand. The fourth was a younger woman, maybe early 30s, with dark hair pulled back, wearing glasses, taking notes on a small leather pad. The fifth was a man I did not recognize, perhaps 50, balding, wearing a slightly less expensive suit than Volkov, holding a leather briefcase on his lap. Volkov was raising his champagne flute. He said, in his low Russian accent, "To the operation, to the night." The four other people at the table raised their glasses. Saskia said, "To the night." She was smiling at Volkov the way she had smiled at me on our wedding day. I closed the door. I stood in the back hallway of the Athenaeum and I did not move. I had thought, for 4 months, that my wife was having an affair. I had not thought that I would walk into a restaurant on my 5th wedding anniversary and watch her toast champagne with another man. I had not thought that she would be wearing the only thing I had left of my mother while she did it. I turned to walk out. I walked past the kitchen, back through the line of cooks, back toward the front of the restaurant. I was going to leave. I was going to drive home. I was going to call Pearl Templeton in the morning. I was going to file for divorce by the end of the week. I had taken 6 steps when a woman stepped out of an alcove off the hallway and put her hand on my arm. She said, "Don't leave yet." I stopped. The woman was perhaps 47 years old. She had silver blonde hair cut short. She was wearing a dark green wool dress and a single strand of small pearls. Her eyes were the color of something very expensive, green-gray, the color of a river in November. She had been crying earlier in the evening. I could see the redness around her eyes. She was not crying now. She said, "Your wife has no idea why her boss really wanted her to wear that." I said, "Excuse me?" She said, "The necklace. She has no idea why he asked her to wear it tonight. She thinks he asked her because he wanted her to feel beautiful. He did not. He asked her because he wanted to put it in front of the man sitting across from her, the one with the briefcase. The man with the briefcase is on a private flight to Geneva at 10:30 tonight. The diamond she is wearing is not the diamond your mother gave you. The real one is in that briefcase. If you walk out of this restaurant right now, Mr. Mercer, you will never see your mother's diamond again. And next week, when the family insurance company comes to ask why the diamond is fake, your wife will be the one who goes to prison." I could not speak. The woman said, "My name is Linnea Voss. I am a former mistress of Dmitry Volkov. I worked with him on operations like this one for 4 years. I am now, as of 3 weeks ago, cooperating with the FBI. There is an arrest team waiting 2 blocks from here. I came tonight to watch Dmitry's face when they walked in, but I saw you come in through the kitchen, and I saw you turn around to leave, and I made a decision. Walk with me. We have 90 minutes. If you are willing to listen, I can give you back what your mother gave you, and I can save your wife from prison even though she does not deserve to be saved from her marriage." I said, "Who are you?" She said, "I just told you, Mr. Mercer. Walk." I walked. Linnea Voss took me to a small bar around the corner from the Athenaeum on Lexington Avenue. The bar was empty except for a bartender who was reading a paperback. Linnea ordered me a whiskey. She ordered nothing for herself. She sat across from me in a small booth. She put her hands flat on the table. She said, "Mr. Mercer, I am going to tell you a story very quickly. You can ask questions afterward. We do not have time for questions during. Do you understand?" I said, "Yes." She said, "Dmitry Volkov runs a wealth management firm. That is his legitimate business. His other business, his real business, is moving money for Eastern European oligarchs through the international gem and antiques markets. He has been doing this for 23 years. He has built a very large operation. Your wife works for the legitimate side of his firm. She has been having an affair with him for 8 months. She knows about the affair. She does not know about the other business." She paused. She said, "6 months ago, your wife wore your mother's diamond to a company holiday party. Dmitry saw it. He recognized the diamond. He recognized it because he has bought and sold many diamonds in 23 years, and a 4.7-carat fancy vivid blue diamond with the cut that yours has. I believe it is an antique cushion cut from approximately 1880, originally mined in the Cullinan region, is one of perhaps 90 such diamonds in private hands worldwide. Dmitry knew, the moment he saw the diamond, that it was worth somewhere between $38 and $45 million. I set down my whiskey. I said, $45 million. Linnea said. Yes. Your father bought it in 1981 for what would have been approximately $70,000 at the time. The market for fancy color diamonds, particularly blues, has grown by approximately 30,000% since then. That stone, today, is worth more than a townhouse on East 71st Street. I said, my mother wore it every day. Linnea said, your mother had no reason to know what she was wearing. Most people who own these stones do not. They are inherited. They are passed through families. They are loved as memories, not as assets. I said, continue. She said, 6 days ago, your wife took the necklace to a jeweler that Dmitri recommended to her. He had told her it needed to be cleaned for a special anniversary occasion. He had said the jeweler was the best in Manhattan. He had said he would pay for the cleaning as a gift. The jeweler is a man named Anton Vasilyev, in a small office on West 47th. Anton has worked for Dmitri for 19 years. Anton did not clean the necklace. Anton replaced the diamond. The stone your wife is wearing tonight is a high-grade synthetic, a laboratory-grown blue diamond of the same approximate color and cut. It is worth approximately $14,000. The real diamond is in the briefcase of the man at the dinner table. His name is Roman Petrov. He is a Russian-born British citizen who works as an asset broker for a Geneva-based holding company that exists primarily to serve clients on the United States Treasury sanctions list. Petrov is leaving Teterboro on a private aircraft at 10:30 tonight. The diamond is going to a buyer in Geneva who has paid $43 million for it. I said, why is my wife wearing the fake to the dinner? Linnea said, because Dmitri needed the buyer to see the diamond on a person, in a setting, before the final transfer. The buyer wanted to confirm provenance, to confirm the diamond is what Dmitri said it was. Tonight is the verification dinner. Your wife is, in a sense, the certificate of authenticity. She has no idea. She thinks she is at a celebration dinner for closing a major account. She thinks Dmitri asked her to wear the necklace because he wanted her to look beautiful in front of an important client. She paused. She said, next week, when the diamond is in Geneva and the money has been wired, Dmitri will inform your wife that the necklace needs to be returned to its safe. She will go home. She will put the fake in your bedroom safe. Some weeks or months later, you will notice something. Perhaps you will have it appraised for insurance, and you will discover the diamond is fake. You will assume one of 3 things. 1, that the original was always fake. 2, that someone broke into your home and switched it. 3, that your wife switched it. Dmitri has prepared evidence supporting the 3rd explanation. He has been in your wife's emails. He has fabricated correspondence between her and a fake jeweler in New Jersey. He has set up a wire transfer in her name to a numbered account in the Cayman Islands. When the FBI investigates the disappearance of your mother's diamond, the trail will lead back to your wife. She will be charged with grand larceny. She will not be able to explain it. She will go to prison. Dmitri will walk away with $43 million and an alibi made of a woman who loved him. I sat in silence for a long moment. I said, why are you telling me this? Linnea said, because 3 weeks ago, after Dmitri ended our 4-year relationship and replaced me with your wife, I went to the FBI. I have given them information on every operation Dmitri has run since 2017. There are 6 other diamonds on the list. The team is going to walk into the Athenaeum at exactly 10 o'clock tonight. They are going to arrest Dmitri Volkov. They are going to arrest Roman Petrov. They are going to seize the diamond. They are going to arrest your wife as a co-conspirator. I said, but she did not know. Linnea said, I know that. The FBI knows that. But the case against Dmitri is stronger if your wife is initially named as a co-conspirator and then turned state's witness. The FBI lead agent, her name is Marissa Bryce, you will meet her in approximately 40 minutes, has agreed that if your wife provides full cooperation against Dmitri tonight, the charges against her will be reduced significantly. She may serve as little as 18 months in federal prison instead of 12 to 15 years. She paused. She said, but there is one thing the FBI does not know that I do. I said, what? Linnea said, Dmitri has prepared an exit plan. If anything goes wrong tonight at the dinner, if there is a sign that the operation has been compromised, Petrov will leave the restaurant immediately with the briefcase, drive to Teterboro Airport, and depart on his aircraft within 45 minutes. The FBI plan is built on Petrov staying at the dinner until 10 o'clock. If the FBI walks in at 10 and Petrov has already left, they will arrest Dmitri, but the diamond will be in Geneva by morning. there will be no recovery. The Geneva buyer is on a country list that does not extradite or honor Western asset recovery requests. The diamond will be gone. I said, then we have to make sure Petrov stays. Linnea said, yes? I said, how? Linnea said, Mr. Mercer, you walk back into that restaurant. You walk into the private dining room. You apologize for being late to your wife's client dinner. You sit down, you smile, you make conversation. You compliment Dmitri on his choice of restaurant. You do not say anything about the necklace. You do not say anything about the affair. You sit there for 43 minutes. You eat the appetizer. You drink the wine. You make Petrov comfortable enough to stay. At 10 o'clock, the FBI walks in. Your wife is arrested with the others. She begins cooperating before the night is over. Petrov is arrested with the diamond in his briefcase. Your mother's diamond comes home. Your wife goes to prison for 18 months instead of 15 years. She paused. She said, you have 90 seconds to decide. I sat at the small bar on Lexington Avenue and I drank the rest of my whiskey. I thought about my mother. I thought about her in her hospital room at Memorial Sloan Kettering, putting the small velvet box in my hand. I thought about her saying, when you find someone who will never leave you, give it to her. I thought about the woman I had given the necklace to, who was at that moment laughing at a Russian gem launderer's joke while wearing a fake replica of my mother's most loved possession. I thought about my wife. I thought about my wife the way you think about a dog you have loved for 9 years, that you have just learned has been biting the children of your neighbors when you were not home. I did not love her any less in that moment. I did not love her any more. I thought about her with a clarity I had not had at 7:14 that morning. She had betrayed me. She had not intentionally tried to ruin me. But she had handed the man she was sleeping with the only thing I had asked her to keep safe. She had done it because she had stopped seeing me as the man worth being faithful to. She had not done it because she was a criminal. She did not deserve 15 years in prison. She did not deserve to be married to me anymore either. I said, I will go back in. I will sit at the dinner. I will keep Petrov at the table until 10. Linnea said, thank you, Mr. Mercer. She handed me a small piece of paper. On it was written a phone number. She said, if at any point in the next 43 minutes you feel the situation is going wrong, you text the word dog to that number. The team will move immediately. They will lose the timing advantage, but they will still get Petrov. It is your safety net. I put the paper in my pocket. She said, Mr. Mercer, one more thing. I said, what? She said, when you walk back in, your wife is going to panic. She is going to think you have figured out the affair. She is going to try to tell you, through her eyes, that you should leave. You cannot leave. You have to look her in the face and pretend you are happy to be at her client dinner. You have to be a better actor for the next 43 minutes than you have ever been in your life. Can you do that? I said, yes. I walked back to the Athenaeum. I walked in through the front door this time. The host nodded at me. He had been paid. He did not pretend to recognize me. He asked if I was joining the Volkov party. I said I was. He walked me to private dining room 4. He opened the door. I walked in at 9:17 p.m. Saskia saw me first. Her face went through 3 expressions in approximately 1.5 seconds. First, it was blank. Then, it was the white of a person who has just realized her purse is missing in a foreign country. Then, it was a very fast smile, the kind of smile a salesperson puts on when the customer they thought had left has suddenly reappeared at the counter. She said, Caine, what are you doing here? I said, I'm sorry I'm late, sweetheart. The traffic on Park was unbelievable. I wanted to surprise you for our anniversary. Mr. Volkov, I hope you do not mind that I'm crashing your dinner. Dmitri Volkov turned to look at me. I had not seen him in 18 months. He had aged the way wealthy Russian men age, which is not at all. He had the same hair, the same skin, the same heavy expensive watch. He looked at me with the polite curiosity of a man who is being interrupted at a business dinner. He did not look concerned. He did not look guilty. He looked like a host. He said, Mr. Mercer, what an unexpected pleasure. Please, sit. We have not yet ordered the entrees. Tatiana, can you have an extra place setting brought in? Mr. Mercer is joining us. The young woman with the dark hair, Tatiana Sorin, I would later learn, a lawyer at Volkov's firm, stood up and went to the door to speak to the maitre d'. I sat in the chair across from Petrov. I looked at Petrov. Petrov was watching me with the expression of a man who has been an asset broker for 25 years. He was very calm. He was holding his briefcase on his lap. He had not put it on the floor. The briefcase had a thin combination lock on the front, the kind of small brass mechanism that would resist a casual thief, but not a professional. The briefcase was leather, brown, perhaps 10 years old. The diamond my mother had given me was in that briefcase. I said, "Hi, I am Caine, Saskia's husband. I do not think we have met." Petrov said, "Roman Petrov, a pleasure. Your wife has been telling me about the projects you have been working on. Very impressive." He had been told I worked in finance. He had been briefed. I said, "Saskia is too generous. I am a small operator compared to the people in this room." Volkov laughed. He raised his glass. He said, "Mr. Mercer, modesty is the most charming American virtue. Tatiana, pour Mr. Mercer the Krug. We are celebrating tonight." I said, "What are we celebrating?" There was a pause around the table. Saskia said carefully, "A new client, a major account that closed today." I said, "Then to the new client." I raised my glass. Petrov raised his glass. Tatiana raised her glass. Volkov raised his glass. Saskia raised her glass. Her hand was shaking very slightly. I do not think anyone else at the table noticed. I noticed. We drank. For the next 43 minutes I was a better actor than I had ever been in my life. I made conversation about Q3 fund performance. I made conversation about the November election. I made conversation about restaurants in Manhattan. I asked Petrov about Geneva. I asked him whether he preferred the Old City or the International Quarter. I told him about a trip I had taken with my mother to Lake Lucerne in 2007. He said he had been to Lake Lucerne many times. He told me about a small hotel he favored in Vegas. I said I had not been. He said I should go. Saskia did not speak much. Saskia was watching me. Saskia was trying to figure out whether I knew. Saskia was trying to figure out whether the man who had walked into the dining room was the man she had married or somebody else. At 9:58 p.m., Volkov was telling a story about his first apartment in Brighton Beach in 1995. At 9:59 p.m., Tatiana Sorin received a text on her phone. She glanced at it. She did not look up. She put the phone down. At 10 p.m., the door of Private Dining Room 4 opened. Special Agent Marisa Bryce of the Federal Bureau of Investigation walked in with 5 other agents in dark windbreakers. Marisa Bryce said, "Mr. Dmitry Volkov, Mr. Roman Petrov, Miss Tatiana Sorin, you are all under arrest, hands on the table where I can see them. Mr. Petrov, please slide that briefcase to the agent on your right now." Volkov was very still for approximately 3 seconds. Then he said, in his calm Russian accent, "Of course, agents. There has obviously been a misunderstanding. Tatiana, the briefcase, please." He was trying to swallow something. The agent closest to him said, "Mr. Volkov, open your mouth." Volkov did not open his mouth. 2 agents pulled him out of his chair and held his arms. A 3rd agent put a finger into the corner of his mouth. Volkov spit out a small white capsule onto the table. The capsule had a Cyrillic letter on it. The agent put the capsule into a plastic evidence bag. Saskia made a small sound that was not quite a word. Saskia said, Caine, what is this? What is happening? Caine, please." I looked at my wife. I looked at her wearing the fake of my mother's diamond. I said, "Saskia, the man you have been sleeping with for 8 months stole my mother's diamond and was about to sell it for $43 million and frame you for the theft. The woman who told me, the woman in the hallway who saved you tonight, has been cooperating with the FBI. Special Agent Bryce is going to take you to a room. You are going to give a full statement. You are going to tell the FBI everything you know about Mr. Volkov. If you cooperate fully, you will not go to prison for 15 years. You will go to prison for approximately 18 months. After that, you will be free. We will not be married, but you will be free." Saskia was crying. She said, "Caine, I did not know. I did not know about the diamond. Caine, please." I said, "I know, Saskia. That is why I am still in this room. If I had thought you knew, I would have left 2 hours ago and let them take you for 15 years. Marisa Bryce said, "Miss Mercer, please come with me." Saskia stood up. She tried to walk past me. She tried to put her hand on my arm. I stepped back. I did not let her touch me. She walked out of the dining room with Special Agent Bryce. Roman Petrov stood up. He did not resist. He slid the briefcase across the table toward the FBI agent on his right. The agent took the briefcase. The agent placed the briefcase on the table. The agent dialed the combination. Petrov, when asked, gave it without hesitation and opened the briefcase. Inside the briefcase was a small velvet box. Inside the velvet box was a 4.7-carat fancy vivid blue diamond, antique cushion cut, loose, separated from the necklace setting Anton Vasiliev had taken it out of 6 days earlier. The agent picked up the box. The agent looked at me. The agent said, "Mr. Mercer, is this your property?" I said, "Yes." The agent said, "It will be evidence for the duration of the trial. After the trial, it will be returned to you. I am sorry for what you have been through tonight." Lana Voss was standing in the doorway of the dining room. She was watching the agents put handcuffs on Dmitry Volkov. She had been crying again. She looked at me. She nodded. I nodded back. I walked out of the Athenaeum at 10:34 p.m. I drove home to the West Village. I sat in our apartment alone for the rest of the night. I did not sleep. I did not turn on the television. I sat at the kitchen table with the same 2 cups of coffee I had poured at 7:14 that morning, both cold, and I waited for the sun to come up. Saskia came home at 8:14 a.m. the next morning. She had been at FBI offices on Federal Plaza all night. She had given a 6-hour statement. She had been released on her own recognizance pending arraignment, which would be scheduled for the following Monday. She walked into the apartment. She saw the 4 suitcases I had packed for her, lined up by the door. She did not cry. She had cried, I would learn all night. I said, "Saskia, sit down." She sat at the kitchen table. I said, "Your job for the next 8 weeks is to help the FBI put Dmitry Volkov in prison. After that, your job is to serve your sentence. After that, your job is to find a life that does not include me. The divorce papers will be filed by Pearl Templeton on Friday morning. The settlement will be simple. You can keep the joint savings. I am keeping the apartment lease. You can stay at your sister's place in Brooklyn until you report to FCI Danbury." Saskia said, "Caine, I want to explain." I said, "There is nothing to explain. I know what happened. I know why it happened. I do not need to hear your reasons. Your reasons are yours. They do not change what was in that briefcase last night." She said, "Caine, the diamond. I would have caught it. I would have noticed." I said, "You did not catch it. You wore a fake to a dinner with the man you were sleeping with on our 5th anniversary. You did not check it. You did not have it appraised. You did not ask why he asked you to wear it. You stopped looking at the only thing I had left of my mother 8 months ago, Saskia. You stopped looking at me 8 months before that." She did not respond. She picked up 2 of the suitcases. I picked up the other 2 and carried them down to her car. She drove to her sister's apartment in Park Slope. I came back upstairs. I sat in the kitchen. The diamond, when it was returned to me 4 months later at the conclusion of the trial, came back in the same small velvet box my mother had given me 18 months earlier in her hospital room. Dmitry Volkov was convicted in March on 27 federal counts including conspiracy, money laundering, grand larceny, wire fraud, and operating an unregistered foreign asset transfer business in violation of OFAC regulations. He was sentenced to 28 years at FCI Allenwood in Pennsylvania. He will be 84 when he is released. He has no expectation of early parole. Roman Petrov was convicted on 16 counts. He was sentenced to 19 years. He is at the federal facility in Otisville. Tatiana Sorin took a plea deal early. She was sentenced to 7 years. The jeweler, Anton Vasiliev, fled to Cyprus before he could be arrested. He is the subject of an Interpol red notice. The Cyprus government has not responded to extradition requests. Saskia took the cooperation deal. She was sentenced to 18 months at FCY Danbury. She is at Danbury now. She has approximately 14 months remaining. She has written me 3 letters. I have not opened any of them. Pearl Templeton instructed me to keep them in a sealed file in case her attorney tries to argue, in some future custody-related proceeding involving children we never had, that I had refused communication. I will not respond. The divorce was finalized in February. Lana Voss entered federal witness protection in April. She had been Dmitry Volkov's mistress for 4 years. She had helped him with 3 previous diamond operations before she went to the FBI. She had wanted, she told me at our last meeting before she disappeared, to spend the rest of her life as a person who was no longer somebody else's accomplice. I do not know where she lives now. I do not know what name she uses. I think about her sometimes. The woman in the green wool dress who put her hand on my arm in the back hallway of a Manhattan restaurant on the night of my 5th wedding anniversary and told me my wife was about to be ruined by a man I had thanked at my mother's funeral. I had the diamond reset. I did not put it back into the necklace setting. I did not want to give it to anyone. I had it put into a small lapel pin, the size of a coat button, and with a simple gold backing. I do not wear the pin often. I wear it on the days that mean something. I wore it on what would have been my mother's 70th birthday in May. I wore it on my father's birthday in August. I wore it on the day the verdict came down in Volkov's trial. I drove out to Pine Lawn Memorial Park in Long Island on the Saturday after the diamond was returned to me. I had not been to my mother's grave in 9 months. I had stopped going during the months I was preparing for the trial. I had not been able to face her those months. I had given her diamond to a woman who had given it to a man who had been sitting at a dinner table planning to send it to Geneva for $43 million while my mother's son had been pretending to be happy about a new client. I had failed my mother. I had been told that I had not, by Pearl Templeton, by Lana Voss before she left, by Marissa Bryce of the FBI. They had all said the same thing in different words. My mother would not have wanted me to be perfect. My mother would have wanted me to bring the diamond home. The diamond had come home. That was enough. I went to her grave. I sat on the grass beside her stone. I took the small velvet box out of my coat pocket. I opened it. The diamond was the same diamond it had been in 1981 when my father had picked it up at a small jeweler on West 47th Street. It was the same diamond it had been in 1988 when my mother had worn it to my christening. It was the same diamond it had been in 2009 when my mother had worn it to my father's funeral. It was the same diamond it had been on the 8 days she had held it before she had given it to me at Memorial Sloan Kettering. I held it in the sunlight. I said, "Mama, I almost lost it. The man who tried to take it is in federal prison. The woman who wore it on her last night with him is in federal prison. The diamond is home." I said, "I am sorry I did not protect it sooner." I said, "I am sorry I gave it to the wrong woman." I said, "The next time I find someone to give it to, I will check her first. I will check her the way you would have checked her, Mama. I will not be a fool again." The wind moved through the maple trees beside the section. I put the diamond back in the small velvet box. I put the box back in my coat pocket. I sat with my mother for another hour. She had told me, on the 8th to last day of her life, that this diamond was the proof my father had given her that he would never leave. He had not left. He had died, but he had not left. The proof had stayed with her for 30 years of marriage and 16 years of widowhood and 3 months of pancreatic cancer. The proof had stayed with me for 18 months of grief and 9 months of marriage to a woman who had stopped seeing me, and one night in the back hallway of a restaurant on East 56th Street, when a stranger named Lana Voss had reached out and put her hand on my arm and told me what was about to happen. The proof was in my pocket. The proof was home. I stood up. I brushed the grass off my coat. I told my mother I would be back in 2 weeks. I drove back to the city. I have not, in the 8 months since that Saturday, given the diamond to anyone. I am not in a hurry. When I find her, the woman who will not leave me, the woman my mother had told me to look for, I will know. Until then, the diamond stays with me. Some things you do not give to people who have not earned them yet. Some things you keep in your own pocket, near your own heart, because the woman who told you to keep them was the only woman in your life who had ever told you the truth about what love was. My name is Caine Mercer. I am 38 years old. I am divorced. I am the son of Robert and Belle Mercer. I am the keeper of a diamond that crossed an ocean once and was almost stolen on a Tuesday night in October, and came home in a velvet box to a man who is going to be more careful the next time about the woman he gives it to. That is enough for now. That is more than enough.